Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for the final, say, 14, 15 minutes of this program. Got to end a little bit early this morning because Sean and I got some actual work stuff we got to do later. Let's just jump right back into it, though, buddy. Yeah, what we were talking about before we lost this thing here was talking about the petition you can see at the top of the screen, and this is relevant because of, in part, because of the question that was asked last night to Steve Mnuchin. Actually, let me pull this up here. That might be a little bit better part here. But it was asked last night in President Trump's town hall. Steve Mnuchin was asked essentially, "Hey, what about these potential bailouts here coming? What about the potential that we've heard for a while of failing states that the federal government is going to help them out with, I don't know, additional taxpayer money or what's going to happen here?" Give me just a second here. Let me find this spot. Yeah, there we go. And you'll see at the top of the show notes here exactly what I'm talking about. And here we go. Found the part. And all right. So this is Steve Mnuchin responding to exactly what we've been talking about. The petition at the top of the screen you can see to ask the federal government, whether it's Congressman or President Trump, to not bail out states. A little bit of the introduction from my Vice President Mike Pence here. Listen to this clip.
All the tremendous advances we're making in medicine and what we've learned in this healthcare will get this economy roaring and bring America all the way back.
I want to get to the next viewer, but I also want to ask you, Secretary, a quick question. Some of these states that have unfunded pension debt, right? We're throwing trillions of dollars at this effort to renew the country, renew the economy. Should they get money if they have not taken good care of their finances before this happened?
We're not looking to bail out states that were poorly managed. What we did do in the CARES Act, there was $150 billion that was allocated to the states for coronavirus expenses. One of the things the president just instructed me to do, and we sent out guidance on Friday, that states can use the money for policemen, firemen, first responders without limits, so we can make sure that none of those people who have been fighting the front lines in any way are impacted by the states having lower revenues. But the president's very clear. We're looking to help states, but we're not bailing out states' finances.
That I think is say good news, Shine, for those that would fall on our side, I suppose. And as I'm talking about this, I'm going to pull up.
It makes all the sense in the world, and it makes the issue make sense, because when people would say, like, well, these states are struggling because they're paying their nurses and doctors and policemen and stuff like that. And I think Mnuchin makes the good point that in the CARES Act, they made allowance for that in all 50 states. And told, like he said there, they issued the guidance that you can use that money to pay your emergency workers, which I think kicks the rug out from under people in a moral argument of, what about those people who've been working hard for us? Don't they need money?
I just, for some reason, I don't like the implications behind the question itself. And maybe I was just inferring incorrectly, but the way that the question was asked made it seem as if, like, well, are you going to bail out these states that are just terribly managed financially? I mean, the question implies this thing of, well, it's just not a fair thing to do because California handled their money so wrong, and then all of a sudden Tennesseans have to pick up. It's just not a fair thing. That is a part of it. Don't get me wrong. That is a portion of it. A part of the analysis has to be something akin to, well, it's just not correct in a crisis for states like Tennessee who have managed their finances properly because we have a balanced budget amendment and we're sitting on a $2 billion surplus, that we shouldn't have to pick up the load for California. That is a part of the question or the conversation for sure. But to me, it doesn't do enough to draw out the real idea of what we're talking about here. The real idea of what we're talking about here is, what do we do then when we have an extra $1 trillion sitting on the national debt? What do we do then when you have federal government oversight of the way that states should spend money? Can you even do that? I don't even know what a state bankruptcy looks like, so I don't know if we can go the other route with this either. Nevertheless, what I'm saying is, I go back to 2011 one more time. Check the show notes from last week. There were Stanford law professors, Harvard law professors, Chicago law professors talking about maybe what we should start doing, because California and Illinois, the same two states that are talking about this right now, we're talking about this exact same thing in 2011. And what they were talking about then was, well, I don't know, should we use the power of the federal government to force states like California and Illinois to also accept a balanced budget amendment? I have not heard that conversation yet now, but I can guarantee you if they were saying that thing in 2011, that's the exact same conversation they're going to be talking about today. And that's part of my concern is, well, what is the future implications of that decision look like? I mean, yes, forget about the fact that it's fair or not fair now. It's inherently unfair now, sure. Think about what's going to happen in the future. Think about how these bills, we just talked about, Shine, no less than 15 minutes ago, about how the first portion of the stimulus package was ripe for cronyism, corporate welfare, that a large portion of this money did not go to small businesses, but rather instead went to major corporations. And what ends up happening when this money goes to major corporations, that they then have the ability to buy out the smaller corporations that end up failing. And then you have this consolidation of the market. And then, because the government is essentially picking winners and losers, you have a supply chain situation like we do in the meat industry right now. You see how all this stuff is connected, buddy? Right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And these states, if they got the monies they asked for, they would be providing services that should be provided by the public as well. I mean, but the thing is, too, is the money that they're asking for to bail out these states, it's money, as you've kind of trickled throughout the show, there's not an endless supply of money. And I know talking about the limits of it is a theoretical argument at the moment because, people have often said, who knows how long this can go on. But any money we use that is not helping us move forward is not money well spent, I think, because of the idea that there is a limit. And I don't think that the money that they're even asking for will be enough.
No, I don't think so either.
So they'll just come back and ask for more to pay for their pensions and for people who get paid $200,000 a year to chop down trees for the state of Illinois. I mean, they're just going to keep wasting that money. It's going to keep going down a dark hole of places that don't provide value. And we need things, as I spoke of earlier, if you caught this stream, I know we've had some interruptions, but I was saying earlier that we need people to produce value or our grandchildren will struggle. I mean, whenever you take on a lot of debt, the first thing the bank makes sure you have is either money in the bank or a really good job, right? So what we need to do is, if we're taking on all this debt, is we need to encourage everyone in America to start producing value so that our grandchildren aren't saddled with it.
And I mean, that's why I was showing the part of the petition up there on the screen.
Yes, thanks for showing
exactly
that.
what you're talking
Sorry about that. I should have mentioned it while you had it up on the screen.
No worries, man. It's exactly what you were talking about, though. All right. And you'll see this petition. You can see it at the very top of the show notes as well. This is asking our federal government, our congressman and President Trump in particular, to hold to, again, dude, let's book in this conversation from the conversation we were having on Friday. You remember we brought up this conversation about District Attorney Crum. And we were saying at the time that, I don't know, District Attorney Crum says some things when he's running for office and other things when he's not running for office. And Shine, you had a fantastic point, an incredible point when you said, yes, but do not sleep on those things that politicians say while they're running for office, because that is the standard of accountability. That is what you can hold them accountable to. That is the standard that they have set for themselves. Now, when they set that standard for themselves, hold them accountable to that because they put it out there in the public. Now, when Mnuchin last night, the clip we just played, comes out and says, no, trust us. Okay, we're not gonna bail out states just because they had poorly run finances. That's not what we're in their job of doing. If they need help with things, we're gonna get them that help. But listen, hold these people accountable. Watch this pledge right here. Sign the pledge. Reckless bailouts. We don't want those. Massive federal bailouts do more harm than good. They're not the right way to help those being hurt by the economic harm of this pandemic. We just talked about that. We just talked about how these bills are ripe for cronyism. American taxpayers should not be on the hook for reckless states like Illinois, New York, and California. Again, same conversation we were having in 2011, we are having now. Illinois asked for $40 billion. B with a billion. $40 billion. Nearly a quarter, 25% of that $1 billion is for unfunded pension liability. And that's, I think, a little bit of what we're saying is it's not just about the unfair nature of Illinois not being able to figure out how to fund their pension liability. And now all of a sudden they're stuck with it. It's also about the future ramifications of what happens if we do this, of tacking on yet another trillion or however much this is going to be to the national deficit. The national debt. It's about the other implications of in 2011, when we were having this same conversation, the Harvard lawyers, the Stanford lawyers, the Chicago law lawyers, all the top guys writing some of this policy were talking about, well, what do? We can't just bail these states out. In 2011, California and Illinois were the states that were using. We can't just bail these states out and just hope that they do better. So we have to use the power of the federal government to force them to do things better. Those are austerity measures. It's the same thing the EU did to Greece. We are now going to use the power of the federal government to tell these states that you have to pass a balanced budget amendment,
which we won't be able to do because that'll be racist, right?
I don't know. I don't know how you do this. That's what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is this is the way it would go if the Republican Party is weak. They would agree to bail out the states with the condition that they would have to do austerity measures. When the austerity measures kicked in, they would say the fact that you're making us do this makes you bad people because look at all the children or something like that. That's exactly what they would do. And this is why we can't even begin to go down this road, because it'll never stop. It will just keep paying for it. They won't allow any restrictions. And here's the other thing: even if they got it all passed, these states have shown that they will defy the federal government because of who's running it.
Right.
So, and let me try to tie all this stuff in together. Why do you think certain states don't want to open up, Mr. Henry? So they have an excuse to get this money. The longer they stay closed, the more they can ask for. That other story we brought up about how people nationwide, not in red states or in blue states, or people who like Trump or don't like Trump, nationwide, people are just not locking down anymore, except for in certain places. We talked about those protests. They're not just in red states. They're in California. They're in New York. They're everywhere. This is not a partisan issue. The fact that we've been talking about it being a partisan issue was a lie by the media. And the proof was over the weekend with those stories that everyone nationwide is not following the lockdown anymore. Everyone. Red state, blue state, like Trump, don't like Trump. Every state, not red states and blue states, are having protests about opening back up. So it's not a partisan issue. It doesn't go down to party or who you voted for president or personality type. There is an extreme minority of people who want to keep these economies closed. There's an extreme minority of people who want to use that as an excuse to leverage billions of dollars from your grandchildren so they can basically sit at home and play king and queen. All these governors in these blue states like Michigan, they're playing kings and queens right now, and then they're going to ask your grandchildren to pay for it. When the people of America, nationwide, everywhere, the vast majority of people want to be open, they want to do it safely. I think nobody wants their grandparents to die. Nobody wants their dad who has had a couple of heart attacks to die. Nobody does. But everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to open up. It's not a partisan issue. That's a thing I wanted to say earlier this morning. We were talking about the protests and about people not staying home anymore. It's not partisan. That was obviously a lie over the past 2 weeks. That certain people, like half the country wanted to stay closed and half the country wanted to stay open. That was crap. It's obviously an extreme minority led by people who are looking for these bailouts, who want to leverage your grandchildren based on their bad decisions, not just now with deciding to keep certain things closed, but their mismanagement of their states over decades. In some cases, literally their parents and grandparents made these decisions, these people in these blue cities and these blue states. So I just wanted to throw that out there, kind of tie it all together. The reason they want to stay closed is so they can ask for this money to pay for things that they've been screwing up for decades.
Hey, and unfortunately, Sean and I have to end the show right there today. We got a call we got to get to literally right now. Sean, I'm just going to go ahead and kill it right now, unless you want to pull the music.
Oh, you're
up here,
good, man. You can go ahead and drop out, and we'll see everybody tomorrow at 10 a.m., and thank you so much for watching Real News today.